Hello everyone, my name is Abhishek Jain and welcome back to the part 3 of how to build our own RESTful Web API automation framework. And so far I have published part 1 and part 2, and you can get the link from the right top of your screen. And I would highly recommend before you continuing with this video, please watch part 1 and part 2 because this part is actually going to create our actual framework by modularizing our code and just remove all the duplicacy so that in future if something gets changed and if we have to incorporate or add more tests, it would be just a few lines of code which we need to make to just keep growing our automation framework without putting a lot of manual intervention, right? So just a quick recap. These are that 8 test cases which you can see on my screen we have built so far, right? And out of which 4 are positive and 4 are negative. And it's all those test cases are just around managing the user, like create user, get the information about the user, update the user info, and delete the user, right? Now we know that we have a lot of redundant code and we have lot of line of codes, written here, right? So for example, this try and accept block where we are executing a request, then we have this expected message, which is hard coded most of the time. And then we have a assertion, right? So we have, if I just categorize, so first we are creating a test data, then we are executing a request, then we are getting an expected response, and then we are just doing the manipulation, or we are just doing the assertion, right? So just to do one more thing, I think the more logical flow would be get the test data created, get the expected response, and then execute the request followed by the assertion. So we have three main category: creation of data, creation of expected response, and then executing a request and verifying that request. So these are the 4 stages which we have, right? So what I have done is I have created the one utility file. Let me just show you that. I can create here and I can call this utilities. Okay, and I am just going to copy paste the code here. So as I mentioned that we have 4 different stages so far. So I can say, okay, the first one is test data creation. Second one is expected response creation. Third one is executing request. And fourth one is assertion. Assertion between expected response and API response. Request execution steps. So these are the 4 major steps which we have got it, right? So what I have done here is you just see the utility. I have created 3 methods. The first one is data for API endpoint. So here, if you just see, we were generating a test data by using a faker module, right? And I have just created a method, and inside the method, I'm creating those test data for various API endpoints, right? And you just see, I mean, I'm just generating 3 variables for post data, the payload for post data, then put data, and then delete data. It's pretty much same like what we have here, but now it's happening in a method and we don't have any kind of duplication. So this part is test data creation. This is my method. Now we have, I can, if you want, I can write it down here. Okay, and the second method is we have request handler, but I can bring this one here. What this method is actually doing, this method is doing nothing. It's just generating an expected response based on what kind of request type, what payload data, and what kind of test case type you have. So we know that we have two major categories of test type: positive and the negative one, right? Then we have 4 request type: get, post, delete, and put, right? And the expected messages, because right now the way this application server is implemented, expected message is a very specific messages which is connected with the expected API endpoints. In your case it could be different, but this is the fundamental is going to be the same. This is how you have to build your framework, right? So here what is happening, based on the payload data and based on the request type and based on the test case category, expected responses being generating. If you just see the test code, the test case which we have written, in every method we are creating that expected response. Now this method is going to give us based on whatever, the changing parameters we have. Same thing what I have done is I just created a request handler, and rather than saying request handler, let's say and verify. Right? So I'm calling this thing. Okay, so here if you just see, we are executing a request based on the type, and then we are actually just doing the assertion, right? And this assertion is also again, very specific to the API endpoint, which we have already covered in part 1, part 2 in modularity, right? Now, what we're gonna do is we are going to generate a new test file, and rather than building all the logic in a test file itself, we are going to use those 3 methods which we have in this utility, and we're gonna execute our test. Okay, so I have already written few line of code, so let me just copy and paste that. You're gonna check with the first one. So here, if you just see, I just changed the name, request handler and the verifier. So let me this one. So now, if you just see, I replace these line of codes with only 2 line of code, where I'm just executing 2 different methods. The definition of these 2 methods you can find in my utilities. And we don't need this line of anymore. Okay. Awesome. So let's run this and see what we are. If this works fine, then what we're gonna do, we're gonna, oh, cool, this is working fine. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm just going to copy all the codes which I have written. And the only thing which I have to do now is to change. So cool. Seems like now cool. So we have removed, all the hard-coded things and created our utility file where we have 3 different methods, which is actually just handling our entire end-to-end testing flow, right? And this looks good now, right? Now, the other thing is, which we can do to remove, because still we can see a lot of duplicacy, still we have a lot of duplicacy. And now I'm going to use a decorator, which Pytest library itself provides. So for that matter, I have to import Pytest. And what I'm going to do here is pytest.mark.clara price and set decorator, right? So before I do that, let me just give you a little bit of background what I'm trying to do. Now, if you see, still we have these 2 line of code, and this is pretty much same, right? Let me see this like this, right? So here, if you just see, in this function body and in this function body, the only difference, if you will notice, is the test case type and this expected message, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to parameterize this test with this variable, and here this syntax for this you have to give, and the another variable in these 2 line of code is expected message, right? Okay, expected message. Cool. So these are the 2 variables we have. So structure, you can just get it from the Pytest documentation. And here you have to just pass in the value. So positive. The other thing is user is created. Cool. Now the other value would be negative, and then you can copy this request. Cool. And then you have to feed in this test case type as a this expected message. So what's gonna happen? This test is going to be run 2 times because you have 2 entries, 2 lists, right? For these 2 parameters, and then you have to change this hard-coded value. Oh man. Okay, and then this is going to be changed to expected message. Cool. And then you can just comment out all these, and likewise you can do for the so let's see if we can have 2 positive and negative scenario run by this parameterization. Okay, this is pass. Cool, we are good here, right? So we can remove this piece of line again further. Same thing you can do for these 2 methods. Cool. So what you can do, you can say any other thing which is different here, the request type, obviously, right? Anything is different, right? So now you get the sense, right? So all you need to do is for rest of the test cases, you have to find out, is there any other changes through which you can combine the test cases and parameters, right? So here, if you just see again, we have a request type changes as well, right? So it means that if I just change, if I add another one, which is request type, and if I say post, and let's say post here, and add another one, request type, and feed in here request type, right? So let's see what all things we can replace, because it seems like I just missed somewhere some single quotes or something. Yep, extra. So save it. And let's see if I can run this, because I'm just showing you the ways through which you can redundant, you can just remove all the redundant code, bring a lot of modularity in your code. Right. So now by having this request type, you can include the another parameter, which is I'm gonna copy this one, and I'm gonna say add another one. But rather than having post, I'm going to say get, right? If I say get, the other change which I need to make here is this create user, right? So I can say endpoint URL also here. And I can second, so I can say create underscore users. And here also I can say, I can copy this portion from here. I can say create users. Then here I can say only users. Cool. And this one is my positive for now. And the expected response, which I'm expecting for this one is something like this. So one again, it's this one. Cool. Let's see if I can have this working. But before I make the changes, I have to do one more adjustment here, because now we have added this endpoint URL. So I have to add this here, and I have to replace this one as well, and this request type as well. So we should be good now, right? So if this works, we can add, another. So we have include 3 test cases with only 1 test function with the help of parameterized function, right? Oh, awesome, cool. This works fine, right? Now we can add the 4th one. In the 4th one, we just need to have this info here. Like, we want to verify the user ID. What we can do here is we can put a if and else condition, and we can check if request type is get, and if it is a negative scenario, then we can change this post data type with this one. And what I meant here is you can put a if and else clause in the beginning, and then you can manipulate this. So by having only this one method and just adding all the parameterized value here, you can just automate this entire thing. So the only difference would be by just having few lines of code, but you will be having 8 different parameterized combination with 2 line of code. You can automate the entire thing. So here is what your framework gonna look like, right? So you can remove this line of code, and likewise you have 8 parameters line. So in just 20 line of code, you have replaced how many lines of code we have written here is 130. And by having only 20 line of codes, because all you're going to have is 5 more lines for these parameterized value and if and else clause, and then you are good, right? So see how easy it is. And whenever you need to change, either you have to change your parameterized values, or you have to change one of these 3 methods, depending upon how the changes are happening by the dev team on the application server side. So probably now you got a gist, how you can build your automation framework by yourself, how you can bring the modularity in your code, and how you can remove the redundant code, and how you can use the parameterization which Pytest library provides, right? This is what I want to cover for this video. If you have any other feedback or suggestion, and if you want me to just explain further on considering some more complicated scenarios for the API endpoint, just feel free to put that into the comment section. I would love to I would love to create a specific video where I can cover your complicated scenario in this framework. So I hope you would have learned something from this video. And as always, thanks for watching this, and stay healthy and keep learning a new thing.